Hello everyone, I hope you're well and welcome to my May book reviews video. I haven't done one of these book review videos since January because I've just decided every time I read a book, if I really enjoy that book or I've got something to say about that book, I'm just going to give it its own individual review. And I also haven't been doing that much reading, but now I have quite a little collection of books that I'm going to talk to you about. Some of them I've already done individual book reviews on, so I'm just going to get straight into it, and then at the end of the video I'm going to tell you what we're going to be reading for June if you'd like to read along with my book club. So first up, I finished The Vegetarian by Han Kang. This was the book club pick for May and I did a full video review on it. It was originally published in Korean. It's about a woman who she decides to be vegetarian at the beginning of the novel. The beginning of the book is told by her husband, the middle of the book is told by her brother-in-law, and then the end of the book is told by her sister. This was originally published as 3 separate novellas. It's absolutely fantastic. If you want to hear more in-depth thoughts about it, then I'll link down below my book review where I also read out your reviews of this same book. Just such a good book. Please go and check out my review video if you are interested in this one, but I've spoken about it quite a lot on the channel, so I'm going to put that one down. Next up, I have one that was sent to me by a publisher. This is The Cerberus Affair by Valentine, and this is Charlotte's debut novel, and this is about a journalist called Catherine. She's an ex-investigative journalist, and all of a sudden her friend dies, and her friend works in the government in the health department, and his wife calls her and says, I think he knew too much. I think he knew about some kind of experimental thing that's going on. Can you investigate it? And even though Catherine doesn't work as a journalist anymore, she leads a very normal life and looks after her sons, she decides that she wants to find out who killed her friend. So then she starts going into it and she meets this scientist, and then there's a bit of a love story in it as well. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fast-paced thriller. The only thing that I didn't like too much is when books turn a little bit erotica. They get quite graphic about sexual scenes and sexual fantasies that people have. That just doesn't personally interest me. I don't think that it ruined the book in any kind of way, it just doesn't personally interest me. So those bits in the book I was like, oh, could have done without. Didn't really need that for me, but you might like that. That might be something you enjoy within a book. Bit of a romance, a bit of sexual chemistry and all that stuff. But I thought this was a fun, fast-paced thriller. I then have a book that I've already done a review on. This is Gigi by Colette. My edition has Gigi and the cat. So I only read Gigi. I'm going to read the cat next. And Gigi is a novella by the French author Colette. And it is about a 15-year-old girl called Gigi. And she's very fun-loving. She lives with her grandmother. And then there's this family friend called Gustave. And then it goes on from there. I don't want to spoil it, but if you have already read the book or you're not really interested in reading it, you just want to hear more about the novella to see if you want to read it, then do check out my review video. I'll link it down below. It's not a spoiler-free one because I don't feel I can really do spoiler-free reviews of novellas because they're so short already. It's difficult, but if you're just interested in anything to do with this, then check out my review down below. This was also turned into a play by Audrey Hepburn, which I forgot to mention in my review video. So Audrey Hepburn played Gigi in a play version of this while Colette was still alive. Colette was involved in the play as well. And Anita Loos, who wrote Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which is one of my favourite books, she wrote the play. She adapted it into a play. So just a fun, interesting fact. Audrey Hepburn at the time wasn't well known. So Colette chose her to play the lead role as Gigi, but Audrey Hepburn was like some unknown actress and Colette just saw something in her and really liked it. I can't imagine it though because Gigi is 15 years old, and if you see the pictures of it, Audrey Hepburn is not 15. She's definitely not 15 in the pictures, so I don't know what drew her to it, but it must have worked in some way. Yeah, really enjoyed Gigi, by the way. It was great. I then have 2 children's books. I have this one that I was just going to mention because this is a broader discussion. Okay, this is Peter Rabbit and the Pumpkin Patch. And this I got online. I got it off eBay. And I thought, oh, that's really cute. And it's based on the original tale by Beatrix Potter. It's not based on anything by Beatrix Potter at all. It's also got the label that says that it's World of Beatrix Potter, which if that label is on ornaments, then you know it's official Beatrix Potter memorabilia and everything. But this isn't written by Beatrix Potter. She never wrote this story. She never wrote anything like this story. It's just using her characters. So whoever owns the right to her works now, they've decided to publish books that have the characters of Peter Rabbit and everything, but completely write stories that she never wrote at all. It also isn't even in the same tone as her stories. A lot of her stories I find are very sinister. I mean, there's a pig that's been locked up and going to be eaten. There's, you know, rabbit pie. It's a sinister thing, but none of that sinisterness is in this, but this is still lovely. It's still lovely illustrations. It's a lovely little story. I feel like in all Beatrix Potter stories there's some kind of peril, there's some kind of danger for the characters involved, but in this it isn't. It's just lovely from start to finish. I would recommend this. This is a nice little read, but it's nothing like Beatrix Potter. So if you think it's going to be similar at all, not at all. And this is a whole series that they have brought out now and they are continuing to release. And I just, I feel like it's not in the theme of Beatrix. The illustrations are nothing like her illustrations. The stories are nothing like her stories because they're all kind of cotton wool and sweet and lovely, and there's no peril in them at all. Even the characters aren't the same because the Peter Rabbit isn't a bad rabbit. He's like a bit mischievous, a bit curious, that's it. Whereas I feel like if you see the film, which is a computer generated film, the latest Peter Rabbit film, he's really misbehaved and it's very odd. Oh, also there was a line at the end of this that really, I wasn't sure if it was grammatically correct, but it must be because it was published in this book, but it was odd. And this says, Miss Rabbit figured that he had got into some mischief. Isn't it figured out? Miss Rabbit figured out that he had got into some mischief, but Miss Rabbit figured that he got into some mischief. It is grammatically correct, but it just irritates me. When things are abbreviated in children's books or they're slang, I don't know why. It just irritates me because these books are supposed to help children to read, so why are you already not telling them? The full thing is figured out. That's the full expression. So why are you making it not quite right? I don't know. Pet peeve. Very minor thing, very minor pet peeve, but that kind of thing irritates me. And last but not least is a book that I was sent from Graham. I'll link his booktube channel down below. Me and Graham always talk on Instagram and he sent me this book out of the blue, and it is Mary Poppins P.R. Travers. It's an illustrated version by Lauren Child. Lauren Child, you might know of her illustrations because she created Lola and Charlie series, so you might already know of them. The illustrations are beautiful. I love how they scroll across the page. They're not just separate illustrations in a box and that's it. They're all over the page. They make it more interesting. I think this would be a really great book to get children into reading because the words are swirled around the page so they can see all the swirls. I thought it was lovely. I really loved the illustration. This is an abridged version of Mary Poppins, so it's not the full story. It's already quite long, you know, there's a lot to it, and it says it is a sensitively abridged version. And why it says that is because anything that would be seen as inappropriate now or offensive now has been taken out. So there is a chapter with Miss Larkin's dog where someone says something in it and they're not saying it to another character or anything, but nowadays that would be seen as offensive, and they just took all of that out. They didn't replace it with anything else. They just took that person saying that out of the book completely. And when I was reading that chapter, I realised, and I looked at my Mary Poppins edition, the original edition, to check that I wasn't just like seeing it and then saw that they had taken that whole passage out because they didn't want to offend, because it had an offensive word within that bit. And I think it does work, because if children went around and said things that were in, you know, classic literature and they don't realise that it's offensive because they've read it in a book, they think it's completely fine, they're going to get in trouble at school for saying it. So I understand it being sensitively abridged, but it still had some fantastic chapters in, but it is abridged, so it doesn't have all the chapters. The one thing I would have loved to have seen in this though is one of my favourite chapters is the zoo chapter, when all the animals in the zoo put the children in the cages, and P.R. Travers was very anti-zoos, and you can tell from that chapter, and the message of it is, children, you know, when you're going to the zoos and you think it's great to go to a zoo, realise that it is cruelty and that you are buying into cruelty, but it's done in such a sensitive way. It's done in a great way, the original. It's fantastic how there's like a baby screaming in a cage, and it's like, you know, this is what zoos are when they have little cubs in cages and everything, and how that is wrong. But they decided not to put that chapter in this book. They decided not to put in loads of chapters in this book because it is an abridged version. Just for me personally, I would have loved to see that chapter in this, but it's personal. Maybe they thought, you know, a lot of people do go to zoos in England. We do have a lot of zoos. Zoos are big business, so maybe they didn't want to upset those business or upset people who buy this book and then take their kids to zoos and petting farms. Maybe they didn't want to upset those people. It's just a personal thing for me. I think it would have been good to put that in. What do we think of sensitively abridging things? So not just shortening down what the original text was, taking bits out of the text that don't really add a lot to the story and nowadays would be seen as offensive. In Miss Larking's Dogs, it's just one term that's used. It's not used towards a person or anything, but you couldn't really say that nowadays. So that's why they took the whole thing out, but they didn't put anything else in its place. So this isn't a book where they have changed any of the original words. It's not like they're rewriting Mary Poppins, not at all. They're just taking out the bits that would be seen as insensitive or offensive now, and they're telling you this is a sensitively abridged book, which I like. They're telling you, they're not saying this is the full Mary Poppins story and that's it. They're saying no, we have abridged this in a way that we think is sensitive and modernising and updating the original story. I like it. It's kind of like breathing new life into it. For parents who don't want to read the original book to their children, people who might have a problem with it, I don't think the original book, there's anything wrong with it. Let me say that now. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving your child, any child, the original Mary Poppins book and saying there might be some in it, let me read it with you. There might be some bits that we don't say stuff like that anymore, but at the time it wasn't said to be as offensive as what it would be seen as now, and you can explain it to your child. I don't see anything wrong with the original Mary Poppins. I'm just going to say that now. But I like the idea of sensitive abridging for parents that are more sensitive with their children, as opposed to children not experiencing that story at all. At least now there is an alternative. And also interesting to use an illustrator who her illustrations are very well known. At parts I thought it was Lola and Charlie, which is a cartoon that she created. It's so similar. Her style of doing the little girl was just like the little girl Lola, and so that was interesting as well within it. But I really did enjoy this. I can highly recommend, if you've got a child and you're teaching your child how to read, get them this book because it's interesting. They'll follow the words around the page and they're all over the place, and the lovely illustrations. Thank you so much, Graham, for buying this for me. I will treasure it forever. I absolutely adore it. So those are all the things that I read in May, and a bit of a discussion on those things. I have two more things that I'm currently reading. I'll just mention quickly. So Marley's Ghost, that'll be in my next book reviews video, book reviews for June, and The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. I had as May's book club as well, but I haven't finished it yet. I want to read it when I'm in like a really good mood and everything, so I'm just waiting for like the perfect time to read that. So I'm still reading those two. So the book for June that I would like us to all read together, if you want to be a part of the book club, it's very simple. You just, I hold up the book, you read the book, and then once you have finished the book, on Instagram or in the comments under this video, leave a review of the book. It doesn't have to be a summary, it can just be a quick thoughts and feelings of what you feel about the book, bits that stood out to the book for you, whatever you want it to be, and then I will in a review video give my review and then read out your reviews as well. So the book is going to be by an author who I really love, Toni Morrison's Sula. I have read two other Toni Morrisons, The Bluest Eye and Jazz, and I absolutely loved both those books. Her books are amazing, and this is about two girls, one called Sula, one called Nell. They are two young black girls, clever and poor, and Sula breaks free from their small town and then comes back 10 years later. And she comes back and Nell is married and Nell has children, and it's about their relationship after she comes back, and also how everyone in the community that she broke free of and, you know, did stuff with her life, how they feel about her, and I suppose how she feels about them as well, living around her and everything. So I think it'll be really interesting, just because you get her at the beginning and then 10 years later to see how she's evolved, how everyone else has changed, and how they feel about her. She left the town and now she's coming back to the town. How do they feel about her doing that to them? I think it's going to be a really, really interesting book. Toni Morrison is an amazing author. A lot of her books have things to do with race, things to do with women and women in relationships and society, and they're just fantastic books. They really are great. And I think with everything that's happening in America and the protests and everything that are happening, I think it's really important that we realise things about race and we educate ourselves on different stuff, and you can definitely do that through literature, through people like Alice Walker, through people like Toni Morrison, who talk about race a lot. And even though I may not be able to understand, or I can't relate to the characters in any kind of way, because I personally have never had anyone stop me from doing something or treat me differently because of my race, I still feel, you know, it's good to educate yourself on different things. So that is why I did pick this book, Toni Morrison's Sula, because I thought it would be an interesting one, and also with the times we are currently living in. So I thought I would just say that. I haven't just picked this book randomly like I normally did. I saw this book on my shelf and I thought maybe this is a good time to read this book, because it is about race in America and small towns and how race is affected within that as well. So I thought this would be a good book. Tell me if you're going to read along with me or not. This is a book also that is very easy to get hold of. It hasn't gone out of print or anything like that. So let me know if you're going to read along with this book. And I am going to end this video here. I've been talking for a very long time. I hope you're going to read Sula along with me. I will soon have a review up of The Jungle Book when I finally finish it. And if you have any thoughts and feelings about anything I said within this video, then let me know down below in the comments. Feel free to subscribe if you are new. Come in, take your shoes off. I've got over 400 videos. Enjoy yourself, and I will see you again soon for another video.